About 2 weeks ago, I uploaded a video on atmospheric pressure versus the vacuum of space, and really it was a series of questions. I was hoping that some of the people who have problems believing that the atmosphere can exist next to space would answer these questions in the hopes that we would get a better understanding of their thought process so that we could understand each other. I'm not too surprised. I didn't get any responses to that one, so I did say I would give my answers. So those will follow now. Before I do, I want to maintain that the invitation is still open. I'd still love to hear your answers. Maybe my answers can prove as a model for you to follow, to point out where your thinking is different from mine, or where you agree but maybe the conclusions are different. What I'm mostly going to do is show going through the standard answers. So I'll be showing some Google, some Wikipedia. These are all answers that I agree with. These are not scientific proofs. This is just where I look up what the standard answers are, and you can follow along with those. So the first question was, what is standard atmospheric pressure? So what is standard atmospheric pressure? What is standard standard atmospheric pressure? There you are in multiple different units. My usual preference is PSI, pounds per square inch. That's because I'm American, but also going to come in handy because a square inch is a nice, good little unit of distance. We'll be using that in a minute. So there you go, 14.70 pounds per square inch. Question 2. What would be the pressure in the vacuum of space? Well, normally I would just say 0. That's not a very precise answer, but it's within these type of units to this scale. We're talking about 14.7 psi for down at the atmosphere. What is it going to be in space? A very small number. But if you want a more precise answer, we're going to have to ask, what is atmospheric pressure in low Earth orbit? Where in space? So let's start with low Earth orbit. So we're getting something like this, 10 to the minus 8 pascals. What is that? We were looking at PSI. Let's look at this. This is an interesting page. It gives us lots of different things to compare with. Down here somewhere, we should find standard atmospheric pressure. So 14.7 psi, rounded up to 15, and that is 101,000 pascals. So 101 kilopascals or 101,000 pascals. So what was it in low Earth orbit? Where was that? Let's see. Low Earth. Yeah. Previous hit. Okay. Atmospheric pressure in low Earth orbit. Here we go. 10 to the minus 8 pascals. So many, many, many orders of magnitude smaller, but certainly not 0. And then this is interesting. If you want to go into deep space, as you go further out, the atmosphere continues getting thinner. So like, check this out. The atmosphere of the moon is 3 orders of magnitude thinner than like where the ISS flies. That's interesting. And the intergalactic void. So once if you leave atmospheric conditions, you're up here in space, and then you can go outside of our solar system, and then you go outside of the Milky Way, it continues dropping, and then in the deep space in between galaxies, you can get to 10 to the minus 17th pascals. So can we just call that 0? Yeah, I think within the digits we're talking about 10 to the minus 8th. That's fine. We'll call it 0. Then I asked, does the atmospheric pressure change as you go up in altitude? Well, yeah, for sure. What did we have here? Where did we have our 15 psi? Right there. This was sea level, standard atmosphere, and here was a typhoon caused a pressure drop, and the vacuum cleaner's pressure is on here. That's funny. Oh, hey, this one's coming up. Summit of Mount Everest, 34 kilopascals compared with 101. So it's like, what's that, like a third the pressure as you go up in altitude? So yes, the pressure changes, it decreases. When you go up in altitude, the pressure drops, and you can see it dropping up this chart as you go. And what is the atmospheric pressure on the top of Mount Everest? So Mount Everest, yeah, we found that one on the chart. It's right here, 34 kilopascals. What is 34 kPa in PSI, please? So like 4.9. So 4.93 if you want the three significant figures. We only have two here. So 4.9 PSI I'm going to go with. What is the pressure at the altitude a jet airliner flies? So, well, how high does a jet airliner fly? That's not even on here. Not on this chart. So let's look it up. Let's just say, how about pressure at altitude in PSI? I don't know. See if we can get something. What do we got here? Barometric pressure, altitude table. Here's a PDF. Atmospheric pressure at different altitudes, avs.org. All right, what do we got? Here's our sea level standard 14.7. And as you go up in altitude, yes, it drops just as was predicted. So how high does an airliner fly? If we say it's going to fly at 30,000 feet, then I'm going to answer 4.37. We're going to go up to 40,000 feet. It can get down to 2.73. Going to continue dropping as you go up in altitude, but I'm going to say that's probably about as high as my airliner is going to go. How high does a jet airliner fly? Boop, 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 boop. Hey, between 31 and 38,000 feet for commercial jets. So somewhere in that range, somewhere the pressure will be greater than 2.73 and maybe somewhat less than 4.37. And here's an interesting one. What is the lowest pressure we can get within our atmosphere? So what is the lowest pressure we can get within our atmosphere? Well, that really depends on what you mean by our atmosphere. So it's kind of an open question, really. My answer is that the pressure drops continuously, starting up at sea level with where you expect about 14.7 psi, and it continues to drop and drop and drop and drop and drop and drop the higher you go, until at some point, scientists have decided this is the point when we're no longer in the atmosphere. But it doesn't actually hit any kind of break point. As we saw before, it keeps dropping until you're getting into intergalactic space. So the atmosphere definitely ends before that. These numbers are pretty small. Let me zoom in on those. So here at 500,000 feet above the Earth, we're clocking in at 7 times 10 to the minus 8 psi. That's definitely in the zone where I'm just going to call it 0. And then this chart ends at 2 million feet above the Earth, which is like 7 times 10 to the minus 11 psi. Solid 0 as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's technically, right, that's not 0 precisely, but in the math we're going to do with these numbers, it's 0. Might as well be 0. Won't make any difference at all to the answer. But yeah, you might ask, oh, well, how do you know where does the atmosphere end? How high does the atmosphere extend from the Earth? Okay, let's do that. That's Wikipedia, why not? Good place to start. Okay. So yeah, according to Wikipedia here, there's something called the exosphere. That's way up there. So there's the thermosphere and then the exosphere. The exosphere is the top layer, right? It starts at 700 kilometers above sea level. It goes up to 10,000 kilometers. So that's It goes up to 33 million feet. That chart we just had was up to 2 million feet. This is up to 33 million feet. Interesting. So let's keep this in mind. 700 kilometers is where the exosphere starts, and it goes up to whatever. How high is the ISS? So the International Space Station, that's in low Earth orbit. It's at 254 miles. Units are fun, aren't they? There we go, 400 kilometers. So we're going to call the ISS, which is certainly in low Earth orbit, 400 kilometers. And let's see, where does that land? 400 kilometers isn't even in the exosphere yet. That's in the thermosphere here. So, yeah. At the ISS's altitude, we're definitely sort of still in the atmosphere. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so the answer to the question, the lowest pressure you can get within our atmosphere is 0. You can go all the way down to something that's as close to 0 as you would care to. So that bonus question, okay. If a circle has an area of 1 square inch, what is the circle's diameter? The formula for the area of a circle, area equals pi r squared, where r stands for the radius. So I'm going to solve that for r squared is just area divided by pi. And the area we were given, 1 square inch. So we'll divide 1 square inch by pi. And I'm just going to go on a calculator and do that. So r squared, 0.318 square inches. Square root it to get the radius of 0.565 inches. But we were asking for the diameter. Diameter is twice the radius, or 1.13 inch. So it's about an inch. First exercise was we were going to put standard atmospheric pressure inside and outside of a sealed box and just measure how much net force was generated on a 1 square inch hole. So standard atmospheric pressure we said was 14.7 pounds per square inch. Our little hole was 1 square inch. Now you probably guess why I like pounds per square inch. Because I'm going to use square inches. That's correct. Okay, so yeah, 14.7 pounds per square inch times 1 square inch is just going to give you 14.7 pounds. So there's 14.7 pounds of pressure pushing on this side of the plunger. How about the other side of the plunger? Well, the other side of the plunger also has 14.7 pounds pushing on it. It's the same area of plunger, same pressure on the inside and the outside. The pressure's equal, and so the net force is 0. So now we're going to suck out the air from the outer container and drop it down to the pressure from the airliner altitude. This is, outside an aircraft. We're kind of imagining the whole thing where James Bond shoots the window and Goldfinger gets sucked out from the tremendous vacuum force that exists. So what do we have? In the inside of the box, we have that 14.7 pounds. How much is the outside? We said there was 2.73 pounds per square inch out there acting at 1 square inch surface area. That gives us 2.73 pounds. So we have 14.7 pounds pushing this way. We have 2.73 pounds pushing this way. They subtract. And Goldfinger is sucked out the window with about 12 pounds. To be fair, I should mention that the aircraft is moving, and Bernoulli's principle will substantially drop the pressure even lower. But I think you can guess it's not going to suck. It's not going to suck Goldfinger out the window. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. Okay, exercise number 3. We continue sucking the outside of the container down. We're going to suck it down to the vacuum of space. Actually, somebody pointed out that you can't do that. You can't, just a regular old pump like this isn't going to get you down that low. And I don't care. That's fine. We're not actually going to do this experiment. This is a math question, right? imagine we could. Imagine we could get down to the vacuum of space, which we said was 0 pounds. So that's 0 pounds per square inch. Again, we didn't say it's exactly 0. I'm just out to 3 figures. It's 0. The next digit is just way down here. So I'm only going to do that much. So it's going to give me 0.00 pounds. Okay, so if Matt Damon pops a hole, a 1 square inch hole in his glove, how much pressure does that air push out through there? Let's take a look. It's 14.7 this way minus 0 this way gives us 14.7 pounds of rocketing force that shoots him across. Yeah, right. So yeah, there may have been a little bit of movie license involved in that one, especially when you consider how small the hole was that Matt Damon poked. It wasn't a 1 square inch hole. It was a teeny tiny little hole. And you may have noticed as we were cruising through that wiki article a moment ago that that spacesuits are not pressurized to 14.7 pounds. They give those guys full oxygen so they can drop the pressure substantially lower than that. And they don't have to hold in as much pressure. Okay, so there you go. 14.7 whole pounds of ginormous force pushing from the atmosphere back against the vacuum of space. You may have also heard about how the ISS had a tiny little hole in it that they discovered, and one of the astronauts was able to just put his finger over the hole, and there was a lot of, oh my God, that's impossible. His finger would be shredded. He'd be sucked out. His whole body would be sucked out through the hole. No, he's not going to get sucked out, right? He's not getting sucked out by 15 pounds of pressure. And this is a square inch, right? A square inch, we said, was over an inch in diameter. The hole in the ISS was much, much smaller than that, which means a much smaller force than that. So no, it was just a couple of pounds of force on a finger. It's no big deal. Okay, so summary. Here's the summary of all the questions and all of my answers. All of my answers are the standard scientific answer. If your answers differ from that, then that's something maybe we could talk about. I think that the standard atmospheric pressure is about 14.7 psi. It varies, right? Which is why I call it a standard. It's just like an average. When you get out to space, it drops really, really low. Might as well call it 0. And the pressure drops gradually from 14.7 to 0. On the way going past Mount Everest, it crosses 5 psi. And if you keep going up higher than Mount Everest, go up to where a jet airliner is going to fly, it's down to 2.7 psi. If you keep on going up all the way up to the upper atmosphere, it hits effectively 0 at some point. And you're still in the atmosphere. So there's no line. There's not like a point where, oh, we had pressure here, but now we have no pressure here. You know, it just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. And eventually it gets to 0. The bonus question, the circle has a diameter of a little over an inch. And the 3 exercises. If we put the same pressure inside and outside, then of course, there's no force. They balance, those pressures balance, so there's no force. If we sucked out some air from the outside, we generated about 12 pounds on the plunger at the altitude an airliner flies. And then if you want to go up higher, you want to take your airliner and take it out to space or something, you're going to drop down to 14.7 pounds pushing on every square inch of that spacecraft. And there you go. So if you have answers, let me know. Or if I made mistakes, let's hear that too.